Namaste and welcome to our continuing series, The Synthesis of Yoga with Ranganath. We are on chapter 4, The Systems of Yoga, page number 37, the last paragraph. We begin with explaining.
We have already read the para, so we'll read line by line. The triple path of devotion, knowledge and works attempts the province which Raja Yoga leaves unoccupied. It differs from Raja Yoga in that it does not occupy itself with the elaborate training of the whole mental system as a condition of perfection, but seizes on certain central principles, the intellect, the heart, the will, and seeks to convert their normal operations by turning them away from their ordinary and external preoccupations and activities and concentrating them on the divine. I read 2 lines actually, but doesn't matter. So, he is clubbing all the 3 together. Path of devotion, Bhakti Yoga. Path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Path of works, Karma Yoga. And all of them he is clubbing together, whereas he has discussed Hatha Yoga separately and Raja Yoga separately. But here he is clubbing them all together, possibly because in his system you have to use all the 3 together. Okay? So, it differs from Raja Yoga in that it does not occupy itself with the elaborate training of the whole mental system as a condition of perfection. Okay? So, what does Raja Yoga do? It goes very systematically. First of all, it teaches you moral principles. Yama, niyama. Don't do this, don't do this. Do this, do this. Okay? Don't tell lies. Don't steal others' properties. All these things. But do what have to do? Worship the divine. Read the scriptures. Okay? Keep yourself clean in body and mind and life. Okay? All these things, the yamas and niyamas. 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. Then after that is more or less done, then he comes to asanas. He concentrates on the Raja Yoga concentrates on the body. Make it steady and capable of retaining the energy that may pour into it by asanas. Asanas steadies down the body and gives it the capacity to hold the power that is coming in and not spend it in restless activity. Then it concentrates on the vital. The life element in you is haphazard and it has got all sorts of desires and emotions. So it wants to regulate them, and it does that by breathing, because the breath is one of the main signs of life in anything. Not all life, but most life. Breathing. So regulate the breathing. Okay? There are many types of pranayamas, but they concentrate on very few. Then, once you have done that and calmed your vital down, you come to the senses. The senses, you withdraw from the senses. The senses are operating, but you don't allow the senses to dominate you. You see things, you smell things, you hear things, you eat things, you touch things, but let them not make you a slave to their enjoyments. That is the whole purpose. It's called pratyahara, prati-ahara. Then you come to the mental. Okay, the mental is you concentrate, you develop the power of holding something in your mind, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Then dhyana, thinking only on one subject, there is movement in the mind, but the movement is only along one particular thing. If you are thinking of any one principle, whether it be truth or love or anything, you concentrate only on that and not let other thoughts come in. Finally, in samadhi, you make your mind absolutely silent. There are different types of samadhis. One is that your mind in the lower nature is working, but you are separated. That's one. Then the other one is that with the silent mind, you concentrate on what you want to do, but without any thought. You concentrate. So, and then the other one is no thought at all. Absolutely no thought. So, this is the samadhi. So Srimda has pointed out in the previous paragraph that Raja Yoga's defect, according to the integral yoga, is that it concentrates too much on the samadhi, which tends to take the sadhaka away from the physical world. So he doesn't like that, because in the integral yoga we have to concentrate in the physical world and perfect the instrumentation of body, mind, life. So that's what he's saying. So Raja Yoga does not attempt, not Raja Yoga, the triple path. It does not attempt to perfect the mental system, okay, as a condition of perfection, but seizes on certain central principles, and those principles are the intellect in Jnana Yoga, then the heart for devotion, the path of devotion, Bhakti Yoga, the will for the Karma Yoga, and seeks to convert their normal operations by turning them away from their ordinary and external preoccupations and activities and concentrating them on the divine. For instance, you are studying something, you are doing it for your own sake, but now you do it for the divine, okay? Whatever you are doing, turn it to the divine. Associate the divine with everything you are doing. Before eating, offer the food to the divine, and then you eat it. Then, even before sleeping, you remember the divine, and then you go to sleep. The first thing on getting up, also refer everything to the divine, whatever you are doing. That is what he is saying. Seeks to convert their normal operations by turning them away from the ordinary and external preoccupations and activities and concentrating them on the divine. So, he is using the word concentrating on the divine, but there is another word also that he uses later on, consecration. Consecration is to offer something to the divine, and thus it becomes holy, okay? It becomes sacred. Then he is continuing and he says, this differs also in this. And here, from the point of view of an integral yoga, there seems to be a defect. And what is that defect? That it is indifferent to mental and bodily perfection and aims only at purity as a condition of the divine realization. This is the Raja Yoga. They want only to go to the higher level. They are not too much bothered with the mind and the vital and the body. They are not bothered at all. They want only liberation. The second defect is that as actually practiced, it chooses one of the three parallel paths exclusively. The second defect is that as actually practiced, it chooses one of the three parallel paths. The three parallel paths, body, life and mind. So the yoga we have just now discussed, all of them have different methods. So it chooses only one of them. It doesn't choose all. Okay? Like Sri Ranganath chooses all. He says that you have to do all together. The second defect is that as actually practiced, it chooses only one of the three parallel paths exclusively and almost in antagonism to the others, instead of effecting a synthetic harmony of the intellect, the heart and the will in an integral divine realization. So, that is what Sri Ranganath wants from the integral point of view. You must try and develop your mind, and you must also have knowledge of the divine. You must also have devotion for the divine. You must also have karma yoga. All your actions with a will, you turn it towards the divine. Make it meaningful by associating the divine with it. This is what he is saying. Clear enough, I think. So, we go to the next para. Now he is dealing one by one. Okay, the path of knowledge, and then he discusses the path of knowledge in two paras. Then the third para, he goes to the path of devotion. Finally, he will come to Karma Yoga. So, we read the path of knowledge. Path of knowledge is the Jnana Yoga. In Indian system, we call it the Jnana Yoga. Aims at the realization of the unique and supreme self. Just note that. What is the unique and supreme self? It's a consciousness which is attained when you make your mind silent, or even if you don't make your mind silent, your consciousness emerges from the body-mind life, is not located in the body-mind life, but outside the body-mind life, and it enters into a consciousness which is immutable, that means to say static, no change. It is infinite, eternal, and also featureless. It has no color, no form, no shape, no size, nothing. You can't describe it in any way. But its only characteristic is absolutely real. That consciousness which is so real is a self. And it's also infinite. And you realize that it is your own being. And it is also, if you are lucky, you may get experience of the cosmic consciousness also. Not necessarily that the self is always going to give you a cosmic consciousness. It does not necessarily do so. But it can. And if the cosmic consciousness is there, you realize that your individual self is now the universal self, and therefore it is one with other selves also. It becomes universal. So this is the self that he is talking about. You can also use the word Atman. You can also use the word Brahman. And in the Buddhistic philosophy, it's called the Nirvana, because Nirvana is Nirva is to blow out, like you blow out a candle. The existence of the fire disappears. When you enter this self, normally what happens is that the physical world becomes unreal to you. Okay? It becomes, the reality of the physical world is sort of blown out. So it's called the Nirvana. Okay? But the self is not necessarily ending always in Nirvana. It can also end in the cosmic consciousness, which he discusses in the Life Divine. So when you enter into the self, which is the Atman, or you can call it also the Brahman consciousness, okay, you are in a consciousness, your ego disappears. You are not located in the body-mind life. You have no sense of a personality. You are infinite. You feel yourself to be everywhere. Okay? So, this is the, and when that happens, 90% of the time, the world becomes an illusion. It only becomes a shadow play of images. Okay? Just like the images in a cinema on the screen. If you look at the screen and stand back a little bit, you realize that it's only images on a screen. Okay? And you are not involved in any way with it. But what happens is, if you are involved in the story and you are watching the film very carefully, you will identify yourself with the story and the characters. So if there is a funny scene, you will laugh. Although it's only images on a screen, you will laugh. Or if there is a very sad scene, you may even cry. It's not unusual at all. So this is the identification with the images in the physical world. This is our condition. We identify ourselves with our body, mind, life, which are only images. They are the most outward realities. They are realities, means they are half realities, because they disappear. At some point or other, they disappear. At the end of life, your body melts and goes back into matter. Your life also is dissolved. Your mind also is dissolved. The only thing that remains is your true self, your psychic being. And that goes into the psychic being, a psychic world, and reviews its life and takes birth again after a certain period, which is not fixed. Okay? So this is the reality of the process. So when you are identifying yourself with your body, mind, life, it is as though you are watching a film and you are identifying yourself with the images. But if you for 1 second stand back and say, Arey, why am I getting involved? Why am I getting so involved emotionally? And why am I... These are only images on the screen. They have no reality. This is the self. And what is the self then? The screen itself. The screen which is featureless, white, and in the cinema hall, it's a rectangular screen. But now the self is a screen. It is not even white. It is so free of characteristics and features. This is not even white, but it's a screen. And it has no borders. It is infinite. And it is eternal. So, this is the experience of the nirvana. You experience, you feel, you are not identified with the images in the physical world. Your body, mind, life also is only an image. It's got there's only a half reality. You see them only as shadow play of images. This is the experience of the self. So this is what the Jnana Yoga tries to do. The Jnana Yoga, okay, tries to go to the self. That is the aim. Okay, so clear? It's a very important concept to understand, because it applies to, if you want to understand Srimada's philosophy, you must understand the self. And also, if it is yoga also, you must understand what the self is. It's not very easy to conceive of it, but that's why we have to keep repeating this idea. It's a consciousness. What is the self? It's a consciousness. But this consciousness is vast, infinite, eternal, featureless. No characteristics, no weight, no size, nothing. Okay, you can't describe it. That's why it is ineffable. You can't speak about it at all, because there is no feature. How are you going to describe it? But its only thing, it is absolutely real, and it is also static. That is important. You are entering into a consciousness which is static. There is no movement there at all. Movement is only in the physical world. So this is the aim of Jnana Yoga. It proceeds, I am reading the next sentence. It proceeds by the method of intellectual reflection, vichara, to right discrimination, viveka, discrimination. Okay? Vichara is thinking, reflection, inquiry if you want, and right discrimination, viveka. You must be able to distinguish between the reality and the non-reality. It observes and distinguishes the different elements of our apparent and phenomenal being, and rejecting identification with each of them arrives at their exclusion and separation in one common term as constituents of prakriti, of phenomenal nature, creations of Maya, the phenomenal consciousness. So, big sentence, we'll look at each word carefully what he's saying. So, vichara is clear. Enquiry and thinking in the right way. Reflection. Okay, deep reflection, not ordinary reflection. And discrimination. You must be able to make out what is right, what is wrong, what is to be done, what is not to be done. Viveka. Okay. It observes and distinguishes the different elements of our apparent or phenomenal being. There you are. Which is the apparent or phenomenal being? Your body, your vital, and your mind. Why? And we have to also explain the word phenomenal. Okay? Phenomenon is something which is an event. It has a starting point, it has a development period, and it ends also. Every phenomenon is an event with a starting point and an ending point. So, is it real? It is real when it is in existence. But it is neither real before birth, nor is it real after birth. That's why it is phenomenal. And you can say that it is only half real. Okay? So you have to distinguish your own self from the body, from the vital, and from the mind. And these three elements are all created. Your soul is uncreated. Remember, because your soul is the divine.
The soul
essentially
is,
divine.
The soul is uncreated.
Uncreated.
Okay.
Because it is eternal.
Right. So can we say the soul is unborn?
Yes. It's the same thing.
The same thing.
Aja is the word used in Sanskrit. So, the soul is uncreated. But your body, mind, life are creations. And everything that is created in the world must also be destroyed.
Right.
There is nothing in the physical world which is permanent.
Right. Like in one of the prayers, Mother says that in existence, everything is relative. And it is because, one has taken birth, one has to live in relativities. But the essential truth is,
Yeah. Now, the word relativity also you have to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's why a little bit of discussion is necessary to understand the basic concepts. When you enter into the Nirvana consciousness or the Brahman consciousness or the self, it is one. It is because it is pure and one, because it is infinite and featureless. There is nothing else there. Therefore, it is one. But when you come down to the physical world, there are the many. I can see so many. In this room, so many chairs, these two lights are there, my computer is there. This is the field of the multiplicity. And the word relative and absolute applies to exactly this. When you go to the higher level of consciousness, it is the absolute. When you are in the lower level of consciousness, it's the world of relativity. Why relative? Because can you have relativity when there is only one?
No.
Not possible. How can you have a relation with only one? You need two. So that's the starting point of the multiplicity. That's why you call the physical world relative. And relativity disappears entirely when you go to the absolute. There is only one. So this is important thing you must remember. The Brahman consciousness is one. The physical world here is the many. The one and the many. The Brahman consciousness is static, completely immutable. The physical world is mutable, constant change. Don't think that this table is not changing. Because if you go down to the atomic level, you will see that the atoms are moving, there is movement. Movement is the characteristic of the physical world. There is nothing which is stable. Even the Himalayas, they may last for a million years, but ultimately they will disappear. So, this you must remember. We'll just give a few things which you must remember. The one and the many, number first. The immutable, mutable. Infinite, and the forms in the world are finite. These are the characteristics. That is formless, this is form. So these 4 or 5 things, if you remember, many things will become clear. Okay? So, the Jnana Yoga wants to get the absolute. It wants the one. It doesn't want the multiplicity. It is not interested because it is imperfect. Okay? So, and it does it through vichara and viveka. Discrimination and seeking. It observes and distinguishes the different elements of our apparent or phenomenal being, and rejecting identification with each of them arrives at their exclusion. I now don't think that I am the body. Neti nati, na iti, na iti, na iti. This is the method. Neti neti is the method of the Jnana Yoga. I am not the body. I am not the vital. I am not the mind even. I am not my thoughts. Then what am I? I am pure consciousness. Okay? That famous shloka of Nirvana Ashtakam of Shankaracharya. Mano buddhi ahankara chittane naham. I am not all these things. Neither the mano, nor the buddhi, nor the chitta, chittane naham. I am not these things. Then what am I? Shivoham, Shivoham. Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. This is a beautiful shloka of, it's called the Nirvana Ashtakam. There are 8 stanzas, and it goes on repeating this. Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. This is what Swami is saying in his own way. Okay? So, he says, exclusion and separation of our common term as constituents of prakriti. So now we can use the word prakriti for the physical world. That which is created is prakriti. The stone is created, the tree is created, the insect is created, the cat and dog is created, man is created. This is prakriti. The physical world also entirely is created. So that which is created is prakriti, that which is uncreated is purusha. Okay? You can also relate purusha to consciousness, and you can relate prakriti to force, chit shakti. So, these are basic ideas which you must keep in mind. More important if you want to understand Sri Aurobindo. But here, yoga is more practice. So, but some amount of theoretical knowledge also is necessary. So, I go to the next cell. And also there is another thing. The phenomenal nature, okay, he is mentioning Maya. Maya is, again, a little bit of explanation for Maya. Maya comes from the Sanskrit root ma, to measure. So, that which is created is measured and given form. That's why it is Maya. So that which has been measured and given form, it can also be destroyed. So I have to make this idea clear. Normally we give the example of, I'm a potter. I've got an infinite amount of clay, but it is formless. Okay, it's not strictly formless because it's got form and color, but the Brahman consciousness, the Sat, is subtle substance without form, without any features. Now, Maya has got the power to take this substance and make pots and pans out of it. So, take clay for instance. Okay, you don't see pots and pans in the clay, but it is capable of producing pots and pans. So, how do you produce that? What is manifestation? You take a little bit of clay and give it a form. This is Maya. Okay? So, Maya is the power of the divine to make forms out of that which is formless. This is Maya. And the root is Ma. Ma means to measure and give form. Okay? So, in other words, also this is an idea which is you have to relate to that. Manifestation of the physical world, manifestation necessarily implies limitation. You take a little bit and make a form. All forms are limitations. So, and limitation also implies imperfection because you don't have the whole. So, the manifestation in the physical world has got features of imperfection. It is constant movement and constant phenomenal transiency as well as transience is the word. Okay, transience as well as mutability, transience, and only forms and half real. This is the, you can call it Maya, you can call it prakriti, you can call it phenomenal nature. Okay, so now we come to the next sentence. So it is able to arrive at its right identification with the pure and unique self. When you disengage yourself from your body-mind life, you come to know that you are not the body-mind life, you are pure consciousness. Okay, so that's the aim of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, which is not mutable. There you are. It is immutable, nor is it perishable. It is permanent. Okay, that's why we say when you go to the self, you realize your own immortality. And when you realize your own immortality, I have always been and I will always be. Okay, because the reality of your being is your soul, and the soul is a portion of the divine. Essentially, they are the same. Okay. So, it is able to arrive at its right identification with the pure and unique self, which is not mutable or perishable, not determinable by any phenomenon or combination of phenomena. The word determinable means giving it a shape and form and giving some characteristics which determine it, which make it, which has characteristics. So, it cannot be given characteristics also by any phenomenon or combination of phenomena. From this point, the path as ordinarily followed leads to the rejection of the physical worlds from the consciousness as an illusion and the final emergence without return of the individual soul in the Supreme. So this is the path of, he has told you in one small para, what is the aim of the Jnana Yoga. The Jnana Yoga is to get rid of your identification with your body-mind life, know yourself to be the pure, immutable, infinite, eternal portion of the divine, and if you so want, you disappear into the infinite from where you came. Okay. It's like if you want to compare and give an image to yourself, you are a wave in the sea. And what is the sea? The sea of existence. You are a wave. Okay? And that wave is born and it dies. It goes back into the sea. So your soul also is a part of the divine. It comes down into the physical world and lives its life. Not one life. It has got many lives, because to realize what it really is, it takes a long time. You may feel that the soul is divine essentially, but when it comes down to the darkness, it forgets that it is divine. Okay, so it has to do yoga, and many, many lives it takes to understand that it is really the infinite, eternal, featureless Brahman. Then it need not take birth again in the physical world. Okay, this is what is the path of Jnana Yoga. Then Srimad is pointing.
Sri Aurobindo emphasizes on the birth in the physical world. For the evolution, you have to take birth.
You have the choice.
You have the choice.
Not to take birth.
Okay. You can work on the evolution by not taking birth as well? No.
You have to come
You
down
have
to
to
the
come
physical
down
world.
into the...
That's why Sri Aurobindo says you must not reject the physical world.
Yes.
But the Jnana Yoga is rejecting the physical world.
Right.
It is illusion. Why should I waste my time on it? Okay.
Right.
So that's what. So that's an interesting question also. When you realize that you are pure consciousness, you have three choices. You can, like the Jnana Yogi, disappear into the infinite, like the wave disappears into the sea. No more existence of the wave. But you also have a choice of coming down. And this time when you come down into your body-mind life, your soul is not a prisoner, it is not a slave of body-mind life. It is master of body-mind life. This is what Sri Aurobindo wants. Okay? But there is a third choice possible. You remain stationed in the subtle worlds. The individuality is not dissolved, nor do you come down into the physical world to take birth. That's what's happening with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. They are available there.
Right.
Okay? They haven't disappeared into the infinite, but they are there and you can take help from them. Okay? But they are not in the physical world either. So these are the three choices that remain with you. So that's the last sentence we have to see. From this point, the path as ordinarily followed leads to the rejection of the physical worlds from the consciousness as an illusion and the final emergence without return of the individual soul in the Supreme. Without return, okay? The individuality also disappears. Okay? That's a choice that the Jnana Yogi has. Now Sri Aurobindo is contrasting it with his own yoga. But this exclusive consummation is not the sole or inevitable result of the path of knowledge. He says that that's not the only choice you have to disappear into the infinite. For, followed more largely and with a less individual aim, the method of knowledge may lead to an active conquest of the cosmic existence for the divine, no less than to a transcendence. The point of this departure is a realization of the Supreme Self, not only in one's own being, but in all beings. And finally, the realization of even the phenomenal aspects of the world as a play of the divine consciousness and not something entirely alien to its true nature. And on the basis of this realization, a yet further enlargement is possible, the conversion of all forms of knowledge, however mundane, into activities of the divine consciousness, utilizable for the perception of the one and unique object of knowledge, both in itself and through the play of its forms and symbols. Such a method might well lead to the elevation of the whole range of human intellect and perception to the divine level, to its spiritualization, and to the justification of the cosmic travail of knowledge in humanity. A lot of explanation needs to be, because we have to go very carefully. So next time we will redo this para. But this exclusive consummation. Exclusive consummation. Consummation, the word consummation is successful completion. When you are in the Jnana Yoga, the consummation, your successful completion is disappear into the infinite. And it is exclusive. Why is it exclusive? You are excluding the world. You are excluding the world. That's why it is exclusive consummation. And Sri is saying that's not the only path. There are many other things that can be done. So he is going to, this para describes his own yoga and what are the aims that you can do with that. And there are several, not only one. So we'll look at that next time.